guys heard about the spies in Silicon Valley?
No. Inform me.
Rippling, one payroll company, is suing Deel, another highly valued, high expectation fintech, for a lot of things, including having a spy within their organization. And do you know one of the ways they caught the spy?
They created a second Slack channel that nobody was aware of that had a special name. I believe they had their lawyer disclose it to Deel, and then the spy started searching for the name of this channel. So it was a dead ringer.
This is the interesting thing. There are always spies. There's spies everywhere. Everyone's fucking riddled with spies. Why is this the one that they decide to be super public about? Is it because Deel's kind of has some shady stuff going on and they're trying to make Deel look shady? What's the PR strategy of being public about this?
Why, hello, and welcome to another episode of More or Less. How are you guys doing?
Great.
We're here. Jess, I was told recently we don't introduce ourselves enough in the podcast for people who might just be joining in.
There is a fierce divide in the podcasting world over introductions, and I have heard from, I would say all camps, both camps.
What are the camps?
We introduce ourselves more, and people say, don't do that. You lose authenticity. And we don't introduce ourselves, and people say, who the heck are you? But then I ask you, why are you listening to our pod?
No, there should be AI that just knows if the listeners listened before, and they don't need to, then they can just cut that section out for us.
Why don't they just Google us? I just don't care. I just don't care. I only do this to hang out with you guys once a week, which has been fabulous. And it turns out that people want to listen in. And if I can't introduce myself to Dave and Brit. It's ridiculous. You guys know who I am.
You wouldn't introduce us. Jess would introduce us. But okay, fine. We can keep going.
It's not clear we know who you are. We haven't gotten that deep yet.
But I found an old SD card of us in Cyprus, and it's awesome. So I got a lot of 20-year-old content on who you are.
Well, you found the Cyprus video?
I found the unedited originals that we then dubbed the songs in. I have multiple takes. It's great.
Amazing.
Guys, we were so young.
When we were young.
And we're still here.
Before our first taste of international infamy, which completely desensitized us so we can do whatever the hell we want. It was great.
It's fair. Getting canceled before being canceled.
Yeah, it's if you're canceled first, there's just you're completely unhinged. There's nowhere to go.
It's a good lesson to remember.
I got a call in Cyprus from the ethics department of the Wall Street Journal telling me Wall Street Journal reporters don't wear bathing suits.
Since they fired all their tech reporters, I assume they don't have an ethics board anymore either.
So what do they wear?
Didn't you also get yelled at by the ethics board of the New York Times? Are you 2 for 2 in being yelled at by ethics boards of large publications?
This is one of the best stories. I hope our audience will give me but a brief diversion. So, because I think this is important.
We specialize in diversions, Jess.
The New York Times asked me to write an op-ed about tech companies and media companies and whether media companies should deal with tech companies, sell their content or not, something in that vein. And I did, and all the tech companies came up, including Google and Facebook. And I think Sam worked at then Facebook at the time. And so I wrote a disclosure saying the author of this column's husband works at Facebook. And I wrote it and I submitted it in my draft at the bottom. My editor in the New York Times op-ed page thought my disclosure was a bit long. I probably included, a million other things. It lives in Silicon Valley where people from Facebook sometimes have coffee and she might see him at a coffee shop, right?
Wait, what was this for?
This was an op-ed in the Times. We can find it. It ran about, I think my point of view then and now was that media and tech companies are in different businesses, should stop doing bad biz dev deals and should just charge ahead with their own destiny. And so I, unasked for, volunteered this disclosure. My very intelligent editor thought I had gone too far in my disclosure. Perhaps I didn't need to share whatever I did and edited it down. So imagine how surprised I was when the then public editor of the New York Times, this is an editor the Times had hired to basically criticize the New York Times in public, a role that no longer exists, called me and said, I'm writing a column about your insufficient disclosure about, your relationship with Facebook. I'm like, come again? Like my insufficient disclosure. A, the disclosure is there. B, here's the draft of the disclosure that New York Times editors edited. That did not stop her from publicly flagellating me in her column for ineffective disclosure.
Flagellating is such a good word.
I mean, again, remember, when I'm 41, I was probably 31 years old.
This is when you cared. This is when you cared.
I could give a flying fuck now.
That's good, Jess. Do you guys watch Severance? It's like shorter words.
Yes, shorter words.
The thing about it is funny is one, this person doesn't have a job anymore, which is hilarious. But two, it's actually a pretty good strategy for cheap content, which is if you can just write shit about the shit you wrote, it's great because it's like the cheapest content in the world. So if anything, the New York Times is ahead of the curve in cheap content.
But it sucked because there's this public editor column out there that is fake news because it was better making me look like the villain when actually there was no villain. The New York Times editor made the right call in the disclosure reading as it
Jess, you're in your 40s now. You got to just let go of the grievances. We're moving forward.
Yeah, Jess, and nobody cares about the New York Times. Everyone listens to podcasts instead.
I want an apology from said ombudsperson. I would like a look at her ethics article. That's what I'd like, but I'm good. I'm good.
Well, you should commission that. If you started doing like articles, which is like the ethics of the New York Times, people would love that shit. They'd buy that shit from you.
I mean, there's a great book on it, Sam. It's called The Gray Lady Winked, which I highly recommend as a book to read. It's just basically all about the New York Times ethics.
In terms of other hilarious like related slips, did you guys catch this whole Solana like video disaster?
I never saw the video. I just saw you dunking on Solana.
Oh my God. It was unbelievable, guys. They basically produced an extremely high gloss, like edited, narrated rant that was like straight out of what they thought was central casting of the moment, being like, fuck woke people, it was like wild. It was wild.
I was on a call with Raj yesterday and I was like, what happened, man?
Give us like the 10-second version and then we're going to move on. Yeah.
So the 10-second version, but it's actually relevant in the culture, is like, so we are in this moment where people are authentically kind of obviously like there's a big shift right, if you hadn't noticed, in a lot of comms. And someone in the Solana Foundation thought that as part of like their next hackathon, they would release this like 3-minute video, which is the basic upshot is like a young white man being like in a therapy session. And the upshot of it is like, fuck pronouns, fuck the woke, let's build shit. Like that was kind of the vibe of it. But and it's like the sentiment on it is actually not, I mean, I don't agree with everything. There's a lot I agree with. But the funny thing is like they completely missed the media memo on this because it's exactly to a message that if like Raj or Anatoly, both of whom are great, had like gotten up, or one of the leaders and said, this is what I believe. I authentically believe this. I stand behind it. It actually would have been basically fine. Like, but instead they like did the opposite, which is whoever in comms hired actors to like act out the most right-wing anti-woke thing you've ever seen in high gloss, high polish. And I'm like, guys, whoever made this, you completely missed the memo on the moment. Because the whole point of this is like true, authentic opinions, warts and all, right? You need the speak your truth. And what they did is like literally took the messaging and made actors say it. And you're like, so do you, what is this? Like all of a sudden you like, if anything, now you ask more questions about you weren't willing to say this yourself. So you made some poor actors say it. Like it was like wildly bad.
So what happened to it? It's just gone?
They took it down, which I actually think was the right. Everyone's like, why take it down? I was like, actually, I think it's exactly. Initially, I was saying you can't in 2025 apologize. Like it's the PR 101 is you do not apologize. So you just take it down and you move on, which I think was the right move because it was clearly an incredibly stupid piece of media. Now, I will say Anatoly, who's awesome, today actually put out a tweet.
Tell people who he is. No one knows who Anatoly is.
He's the technical founder. He's like the guy, the genius behind Solana. It's like Raj and Anatoly, and I love Raj. He's a dear friend, but he's kind of the business guy. Toly is the hardcore genius. And Toly is amazing. And he put out this thing being like, this was a mistake and the whole night. And I was like, wow, that's great. This might be the 201 media strategy, which is 2025 101 PR crisis comms is like never, ever, ever apologize for anything, right? 201 might be, if you apologize the right way, that's actually probably better. So credit to Tolley, but it was a wild moment.
What was good about his apology? I don't follow what you thought was good.
It was just honest. It was like, we screwed up. Like, this was the wrong message. We were punching down. You don't punch down. It was like, it was the message you actually want beyond the like, don't apologize.
But Sam, how is that any different than like, early social media apologies? Like, I don't know why I'm thinking about like when we launched Newsfeed at Facebook and Zuck had to put out the apology, like what's the difference? What's the difference between 2025 and 2006, social media apologize?
I think there's a big difference between apologizing for like product versus apologizing for content and marketing. Like, I just think those like very different veins.
Okay, how about the chair video?
Oh, that was hilarious.
Oh, man.
Social media is chairs.
Sam, my experience of this was like Sam's like really fired up about something. And then I was on a Zoom with Raj, and I was like, what's going on? Sam's like really fired up, and he's like, I don't know. What's Sam fired up about? And I'm like, I don't know. And so I don't know what's going on. And then I read your post, and I'm like, is this like, and the only thing I could think is this like the Facebook chair video?
It's actually a good analogy because the chair video was not as bad. The chair video was just out of touch and stupid. This was like actively terrible.
We have to tell people what the chair video is. Facebook, it wasn't a Super Bowl ad, was it? It was just a TV ad.
I think it was a Super Bowl ad.
I don't know. It was like a first attempt. It was an early attempt at media and marketing and mass marketing.
Wasn't it the first? I think it was the first ad ever.
This is why tech and media companies should not meet.
Facebook is a chair. It's like chairs.
It just starts with, this is a chair.
Okay. We have a solution for this. In fact, it's one of our investments. It's called Brand AI, and it doesn't let you make stupid mistakes like this that don't align with current culture and your brand documents and everything, even if you're like a rogue social media person that lives in another country. So,
which sounds like that's what this was, Sam. Like, this was the Solana Foundation doing something on their own without, the Raj or Tolley, right? Like,
who knows? The world will never know, but hopefully they've solved it.
That company actually sounds pretty cool. I bet that's going to be a valuable business.
But good call, Brit. We're gonna lick the cookie and talk our own book here. Everybody use brand.ai and you won't have to deal with this anymore.
let's introduce Raj to the team there after this. Make sure they're protected.
It's also I don't even know what Solana is like a foundation, and it's like a lot of pieces. I'm not sure which piece released it, but it was so bad that it's like it goes in the category of like all press is good press.
Now I want to see it.
You should. It's definitely online. That's the funny thing. The irony of a blockchain company taking down a video is particularly fucking funny, because the whole point is like,
that is really funny.
Okay. In just a few moments, we're going to talk rippling Deel. We're going to talk Google Whiz, all of these things. Speaking of the culture changing, my the culture has changed moment of the week? It was an interview Gwyneth Paltrow gave about her new movie coming out, where she dissed the intimacy coordinator. Did anyone else see this?
No.
I saw the cover. She looks really good on the cover.
Cover of what?
Vanity Fair. There's a great interview. And I don't know, I'm like 2/3 of the way through the Vanity Fair interview because on my phone, the ads keep interrupting me and logging me out. But I saw a pickup, probably of this interview, unless she gave another interview, where she was basically saying, she had soft retired. She's coming back for this very closely watched movie with Timothée Chalamet, and where they are love interests.
Where they bang. She's coming back to bang Timothée Chalamet on screen.
Why are all the new rom-coms with older women and younger men? I don't understand this.
This is totally the culture.
This is a pretty aggressive cover.
It's because only older women still watch movies. So they have to bang young guys to get them to watch movies.
I actually like where you're going with that, Sam.
Like, that's why.
Gen Z has like an 8-second attention span, so I get that. Okay.
But anyway, she was saying, she's soft retired, has not been acting, is coming back for this movie. And she said one of the big differences is on set now for the sex scenes, there's an intimacy coordinator. And she said she basically told the intimacy coordinator to piss off, and was saying in a polite way, I don't know how actresses coming up now what they need. But for me, this completely gets in the way of my process. And I'm from the era of like, you jump in bed naked with the cameras rolling. And she's speaking her truth. And I just thought that was a truth that would not have been spoken publicly a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Guys, it reminds me of there's a great SNL skit, which is the Bridgerton intimacy coordinator. Have you ever seen this? We should put this in the show notes. This is truly like great SNL. Like, I just remember this specific clip where like, it's really good. It's basically making fun of intimacy coordinators, specifically with all the sex in Bridgerton, and it's worth watching.
Okay. Well, anyway, the tide has turned.
Speaking of which, did you notice that the sub headline on that cover we just showed is the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni thing?
Yeah, which is ironic. I was going to say, because out of all people, it needed an intimacy coordinator. It was Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively.
Isn't there an intimacy coordinator all tied up in that, Brit? Like I knew nothing about this until a couple weeks ago, and then I read the whole thing.
I didn't know this job existed until like 3 months ago, by the way.
It is a good point, though, that it's somehow the intimacy coordinators somehow avoided getting fired in this backlash, this cultural backlash. It's like it's all the same people.
I would be worried if you're an intimacy coordinator. I mean, Gwyneth has spoken. She's like the queen.
It's a good point.
Can there be an AI intimacy coordinator so you just like can't judge?
And Jess, if I'm understanding what her opinion is like, to hell with the intimacy coordinators, like make this real, make it authentic.
It's like, to hell with the intimacy coordinators, we banging.
Especially if it's Chalamet.
I know Gwyneth. I'm gonna ask her more about this.
Yeah, ask her, Brit.
I will say that a long time ago when I was a kid, an episode of Sex and the City was filmed at my childhood home. And they were like banging in our backyard. And, it was titillating. I'm not going to lie.
Oh my God. Okay. I knew that by opening this up, we'd end in so many places. But guys, okay. We have important news to discuss. Here in Silicon Valley.
Titillating to whiz.
Here in Silicon Valley, as we discussed it, oh God, on this pod, we've been waiting for M&A, like waiting for Godot. And then this week, we get Google agree to acquire cloud cybersecurity startup Wiz for $32 billion.
But this is old news.
Well, it's old news, so let's rewind.
Dave, the last one was 23 billion, and this one's 32 billion. You're probably just dyslexic.
Well, that's because you had to wait a year, right? They had to wait a year because they were blocked.
Number go up.
It's important to note that the price went up.
But Brit, it was one more year of execution. What do you expect?
Well, they executed well. I haven't added $10 billion of value in a year, so they executed well.
Well, the question is, how much is Google's stock price up in the last year? Because isn't it just indexed to that?
And inflation.
Their last fundraising round was at 12 billion. So this is a good return for all those investors, of which they're like, it's like Index, Sequoia.
It's okay. The Sequoia return was like 3x, as far as I understand.
No, actually, I'm a small Sequoia LP, and it was actually impressive. They made a lot of fucking money on that.
Okay. A lot of people think they have made a lot of money. I am going to go on record saying this deal will not close.
Here's an interesting question. Is there anyone financing that probability? Like, I would sell my Sequoia position at like a 66 cent on the dollar to that price, if that makes sense, on the theory that I will bet that it will not close, or I'm happy to hedge it. Like, that's an interesting Wall Street financial product, is like betting on the closing of deals. How do I do that?
I think there's no question, Jess.
No question it does or doesn't. Raise your hand if you think this deal will happen.
Absolutely.
Okay, Dave thinks it's going to close.
I think it's going to close because of the new administration. I will tell you.
They can't afford not to.
Polymarket only gives it a 13% chance.
Okay, Dave, say more. Why do you think the Trump administration cannot afford for Google, which is not its favorite company, to acquire some startup?
I don't know what their opinion of Google is. It seems like their ire is more focused on the social media, like companies that control speech in one way or the other seems to be the real focus of the Trump administration. If you look at the actions this week related to the FTC, for example, most of there were sort of two actions that happened. One, the Democratic commissioners of the FTC were fired, right? Unsurprising. They're doing that across the board. But then the other thing that's going on is there's a lot of blog posts and content being removed from the FTC's website. And it relates mostly to these companies that they view as being arbiters of speech. And then I think there are maybe a few Google things. And so I don't know. I just don't see Google as being, a particular point of ire for this administration on the one hand. And then on the other hand, I think that they have to, get business moving in America, and M&A is a core component of the capital machine. And so I just don't think they can afford to send the message that their FTC is going to stop these things. And so I think that it'll go through, no question. In fact, I bet it accelerates through.
We'll see. I mean, there's also a geopolitical component. This is the largest acquisition in the history of Israel. And, Trump right now seems like Israel's best friend. If Trump decides in 6 months he's not Israel's best friend, it shouldn't play a factor, but I bet it will, because it is a big deal from an Israel perspective.
It's an interesting point. Hadn't thought of it.
I think you guys make excellent points. I also think that Trump just wants leverage over tech. And I think that he's going to play for maximum leverage. I think he really doesn't like Google.
Can you unpack what type of leverage you're referring to? Because there's
like a long antitrust review.
Why though?
Because you're going to want something else for them.
Because you just never know it's just leverage. It's just leverage.
Because he's a real estate mogul who this is how he operates, right? And we wrote this week about the Meta FTC trial that's coming up where executives are going to spend days and days. The CMO is relocating to DC to fight these trials. And it doesn't matter how aligned they are on other issues. With that looming, Trump could just see himself in a stronger position. And so what's interesting, Dave, and this is such, I was having coffee and playing tennis with a friend this morning from New York. And I was saying, what's the vibe out there on all of this? How are people viewing Trump? How are they viewing tech? How are they viewing tech's relationship with Trump? And, the idea that I think I just don't think you can believe that it's going to be smooth sailing for these big technology giants because they found alignment and been huge backers of Trump. All the evidence points to, the FTC has gone out of its way to reassert cases against Microsoft and Amazon. Maybe one of them's the DOJ. I can't remember. And that just happened last week. So I think if you look at who he's hired to run the Justice Department.
Jess, I think that look, I agree with you, but it's not going to be smooth sailing, but I do think that the topic of leverage will change, right? Like a lot of, including the Meta thing that you just referenced, like a lot of these things are Lena Khan, Biden era leverage points, which have different sort of a different topical, point that was trying to be made. And I think that it's likely the Trump administration will choose other points of leverage that are not the same as the ones that have been in flight. And that seems to be what happened today.
No, I mean, last week the FTC reasserted cases again. I mean, they're the commentary.
But they also closed. I mean, the Ripples thing finally settled.
There have been a couple crypto things, yes.
I feel like Trump's strategy is just to give in to some people and reject others. It's like he's doing the same thing politically with Ukraine and Russia. He's like friends first, then he's not. Maybe he's keeping people on their toes by doing a little bit of both.
On the biggest issues, he's digging his heels in. I mean, look at China, right? There's not a lot of concessions with China. And I think tech is the most important part of the business world. Regulating tech has been one of the major policy issues. And I don't think, this is an open question, and I don't necessarily believe this with a ton of conviction because I think everyone's making good points, but I don't think he's going to be, I think he's going to be very, very tough on the tech industry. And I don't think that will look like it did with Biden in terms of that pressure coming through speech or that pressure coming through DEI. But I think a lot of tech leaders are deluding themselves if they think that means there's going to be an incredible amount of pressure. And really, the antitrust and regulatory front is where we'll see it. And we just haven't had the test cases yet. And so I think that's why these trials and this Google deal are so significant.
Look, all I can tell you is this: until it closes, it's going to be the Gulf of America. I mean, that's kind of what I see, right? Like, it's like, that's what other things does Trump want to change in the map? Will I think be all in play until the Wiz deal closes.
You mean like Google's going to keep? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. That's why he's not going to resolve it any sooner than he has to.
Look, in the end of the day, principles, resolving things with clarity and principles generally tie your hands, right? And if you're just a maximum leverage guy, spheres of influence, all bets are off. You want to delay, right? As much as possible, making any decisions, right? Because it's all just a big swirling mass of negotiation.
How long do you think it'll take for them? What's the typical timeline? I'm not pushing this through or not.
For an acquisition review, I think it ranges wildly.
It's a big one, so it's probably 6 months.
And I don't know, and I'm sure there are other regulators who have to look at this thing too, although I don't know off the top of my head. So, but clearly, I mean, on one hand, it's Google. And so apparently Wiz was the one who pulled back from the talks last time because they didn't believe it could close. So Google seems willing to fight it regardless.
Well, also there's a new administration in place. Like, that's the big difference. This was last summer and now it's March.
But there was supposed to be a new administration, and then the IPOs were going to flow, and there was supposed to be a new administration, and the M&A was going to flow, you know?
But don't you think it dramatically impacted this outcome? Like the fact that it was Trump and not Harris?
Yeah, I think they're testing the waters because of it. But I think it's far from a sure thing that they'll be successful. And we're seeing this across the business world now, just kind of reckon with, this notion that Trump was going to be unabashedly pro-business, and certainly the economy doesn't reflect that. But I don't know. You guys think we'll see more announcements like this to try to test the waters?
Well, that's what I was just going to say. I saw the, Apple stuff go down last week where, they put out their statement that Apple Intelligence was happening later than expected, maybe not even this year. And that caused a huge uproar among the tech community. And it made me wonder, will they buy versus build to now accelerate some of their roadmap? And will Meta and others start to try their hand at acquiring things that they've been thinking about for a long time?
No, everything's overpriced.
$32 billion? Well,
that's different. I mean, I actually don't know enough about Wiz to understand, but my bet is you're not buying technology, you're buying distribution, relations, like a bunch of other stuff. I don't buy that anyone pays those types of numbers anymore for tech. It doesn't make sense. It's all commodity.
Is that true, Sam? The cloud security is a pretty serious issue.
I honestly don't know. I can't speak to the Wiz thing, but I don't think that we're going to see, I don't think we're going to see overpriced AI acquisitions at all.
Do you think it's bifurcated? Do you think the market's either like 30 billion or like 100 million? Like, it seems like maybe the middle is falling out.
Well, the middle always falls out. That's a rule of life, right?
Well, of course.
So the answer is yes, without even knowing anything that's going to happen. But I'd say in the end of the day, I think people will buy distribution. They'll buy good businesses. They'll buy a growth curve. They're not going to buy technology, right? The acqui-hire era is long over because everyone's just figured out that it's just easier to just buy the talent. I mean, even the we've seen some early quote unquote AI exits where basically big companies just gutted. They basically did acqui-hires. They we'll pay these guys a lot of money, but fuck you investors. Like, you don't actually have anything, right?
I don't know. There've been a lot of acquisitions that have been made by these big companies for like $100 million.
Yeah, but $100 million is fucking chump change. When you do your Series C at $100 million.
But that's not a talent acquisition.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely.
A lot of the technology they bought for AirPods in particular has been on record as being technology acquisition, not team acquisition.
Look, you can buy a patent portfolio cheaply if you just don't feel like going around their patents. You can, but like that, it doesn't happen that often.
What do you guys think of Cursor? Is Cursor going to be a big AI acquisition?
No. No. It's cool. I like Cursor, but no.
I still can't get over that 95% of the YC companies last week were like built with AI code. It's crazy.
Don't you think like Amazon's going to try to buy them? I mean, I have no info here. I'm just guessing.
I mean, Jess, the most likely answer to that question is Microsoft, because it's effectively a branch of VS Code that is highly customized. So if Microsoft felt, the need to, create a better VS Code developer experience, then that would be pretty obvious. So there's a non-zero chance that happens.
Guys, I have an announcement.
Okay.
Speaking of using AI to make code, I have an app. I'm ready to announce it.
Yay! Tell us.
It is a non-venture capital use case of something that I think should exist in the world, especially for parents. And here's the problem. When you're a parent in today's day and age, you have your baby, you name them, and you often forget, oh my gosh, we live in 2025 and I forgot to secure all their usernames, domain names, and Gmail addresses for them to have later in life. And what if there is one service that could just collect all of those usernames for you, tell you the ones that are available if you need to get the weird like dots in between or whatever, and then just store them for you until your kid is ready to use them? Well, introducing Guardling. Guardling is the AI agent bot that you can chat with that will do all of these things all through a chat app. It's highguardling.com, or you can just DM it on Instagram. So that's my advertorial pitch. Go for it.
I love this.
Well, I still actually, I'm squatting on the domain names for several of our friends' children, because as soon as they tell me the name of their child, I would just go buy the domain.
Brit, can I use Guardling to buy other people's kids' names?
It's like a great way to make money. You just say you auction it back to them later in life.
How like evil that's such a mischievous, not evil, mischievous thing to do, Sam.
That's not mischievous.
But Brit, how did you build this?
I built this using an app called Audos, AUDOS, which actually is an offline company. And I was just playing around with it, trying to like make something. And their idea is that you can just chat with Audos to create any new company idea. They will build the product for you. They'll help you brand it, name it, all the different things. And so this was an idea I've had for so many years. I just like never wanted to work on it because it's not venture scale. And I built it within like an hour.
And that is why that company and all other companies like it will be worthless.
No, because it's helping people make money. And
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's infinitely replicable. This is the thing people don't understand. It's like this is the classic fallacy of AI. Like everyone keeps looking at these markets and like, well, we pay humans $100 gajillion for this, so AI is worth the difference. Like, no, AI is worth the marginal difference between that and the next one that's built.
There's so many more things that it strings together. Like it does user testing for you. It does all these different things to sort of help you create your idea, create the market,
But that's my point is fine. We can argue about whether the company is valuable or not. It will be replicated. You can argue about that. The answer is probably not, because other people will just make it. But what's certainly not valuable is the companies you can make with a company making machine.
But if it took Brit an hour, who cares?
It was more than an hour.
It was like me chatting back and forth with this thing. It made me a pitch deck. I did it during an offline meeting. And now that was the basis of the company. But now I'm going to add my hedging, secure your friends' usernames strategy. Thank you, Sam. And then we're going to keep adding on to make this more inventive.
This can work for a business too. Why limit yourself to baby names? Business names too.
I actually I thought about that the other day, because I think you need to brainstorm your business names.
I'm all for it. I just think this tends towards everyone builds the things they want, and there's no point in building these companies. They're not companies. They're just things.
But if they're started by a creator, they are companies, Sam. And then you can take a percentage of the revenue upside from it.
Only if they have proprietary trust and distribution, yes. But that's the whole point of our creator fund. A lot of stuff is like the software is worthless. The business process is worthless. None of that shit matters because it's all commodity. But if you have differentiated distribution.
But Brit has proprietary trust and distribution.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's about differentiated go-to-market and scale. If you can build a brand in the space. Why do you think, Pepsi just bought Poppi for $2 billion. Well, they could have built their own beverage brand, but Poppi had a brand that was hard to replicate, that really mattered to consumers, that was in a nascent category that they want to go after. And they felt like it was worth $2 billion to do that rather than build their own. So I pseudo agree with you.
But Pepsi is just an acquisition machine. That's what that's like, they're a private equity firm with distribution.
Okay, so Sam, what do you think? We know the Morans think whiz will whiz through. What do you think?
I think I have no idea is the honest answer. But I would say this: I'd be happy to hedge my tiny proxy whiz possession to someone at 66 cents on the dollar and have the cash now.
Okay, well, time will tell. Topic number 2. So, have you guys heard about the spies in Silicon Valley?
It's great.
No. Inform me.
So, you may have seen this week, there's been a seismic battle in the world of payroll software.
This is so juicy.
This is so juicy. We've got to get these founders on the pod. Actually, we could probably do that.
Well, it's funny because we were at the Warriors game on Saturday night, and I turn around and there's Parker and his lovely wife sitting behind us. And, and then this breaks the next day.
He didn't tell you about the lawsuits. So Rippling, one payroll company, is suing Deel, another highly valued, highly hyped, high expectation fintech payroll company, for a lot of things, including having a spy within their organization. And you know one of the ways they caught the spy?
Honeypot.
Well, there was a honeypot. They created a Slack channel about Deel and noticed that this spy was very, 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 very actively searching the Slack channel. But the spy was also very actively searching for the information, which has been doing extensive reporting on the rivalry between Rippling and Deel, including a recent piece where they went to blows over the issue of payments in Russia and dealing with sanctions and so forth. So we are literally in the middle of this. And I'm sure that Deel is going to countersue and has claims of its own.
Well, Jess, the honeypot was even more advanced. They created a second Slack channel that nobody was aware of that had a special name. And they, I believe they had their lawyer disclose it or something to Deel. And then the spy started searching for the name of this channel on the other end. So it was it was a dead ringer for that. The information was being passed from the Deel executive team back to the spy.
But my thing is like, what fucking budget spies? I mean, like, Silicon Valley is riddled with spies. Everyone's got spies. The interesting thing about this is, one, I think it's very funny that like a company like Deel that mostly does offshoring payroll, like hired clearly the shit spies, right? Who are like the worst spies. But then two, it's like, it's interesting that like, if it was James Bond, they just killed a spy. In like a lot of other companies, they would like just quietly exit them, right? But in this one, they decided the best strategy was like a very public like lawsuit.
Great press, Sam. Come on. You told us the 2025 playbook for press. Like, this is great press.
But this is the interesting thing is there's always spies. There's spies everywhere. Everyone's fucking riddled with spies, right? Why is this the one that they decide to like be super public about? Is it because they think like Deel's kind of has some shady stuff going on and like they're trying to make Deel look shady? Like, what's the like PR strategy of being public about this?
Well, I have a couple observations, and literally, I mean, we've been reporting on Deel and Rippling for years. And I know when my team is starting to pursue a story on either company because the board members and investors of each start calling me. And it's this very weird experience. I'll get like, hey, have a sec. Hey, have a sec. Hey, have a sec. And they're all from people who don't usually ask me if I have a second. And then I'm like, oh, we must be doing some more reporting about Deel or Rippling, because both of these companies, like they're run by very, very different, but very aggressive, bold founders. And they are out for blood. And they have also enlisted their investors very actively, especially when it comes to their press coverage. And I'm actually curious how these investors feel about this lawsuit, because most of the VCs I know in Silicon Valley, maybe present company excluded, don't like to get into public tussles. Like, you may remember when Benchmark sued Uber and it was like a very big deal. Like, most VCs want to live to get in the next round of the next hot company coming out of something. And so I think it's interesting. I also wonder, I mean, a lot of these comes down to the personalities involved, but maybe also the stakes. Like the expectations around both of these companies are sky high. The expectations around fintech are sky high. And if they're really in this epic battle, scraping for customers around the globe, like that's kind of interesting to me too. So the whole thing is fascinating.
But you should have your company creation thing start a platform called hireacorporatespy.com. It should be easier to hire spies.
I think corporate espionage sounds better. It's just like a little more provocative. And to your question, Sam, I mean, these companies, I was just looking it up. I mean, they're both roughly valued at the same amount. They both roughly started around the same time. And so I think they're really head to head. And, you know, if I'm Rippling, I'm like, I want all the companies that use Deel to like have a sour taste in their mouth about like Deel doing shady shit. And like, what else shady could they be doing if you're using Deel? You know, this is a marketing campaign at the end of the day.
I will say the last big corporate espionage like war I kind of casually know, and this is all hearsay by the way, was like obviously Uber Lyft, right? Where like they do stuff like Uber would supposedly they like put an office across the street from Lyft and use telescopes to like look through the windows, and like this was like, and then they'd like put the shades down. Again, who knows? It's hard to ever substantiate this stuff, but those were all the rumors floating around, is that there was like heavy espionage going on between those two. To your point, Brit, because they were like locked in a death match, right, with people who like did what it took. Right.
Also, you see this all the time in Chinese companies, by the way, like, oh my God, I can't even remember who Didi's competitor was before it acquired them or something, the other ride hailing company.
The thing that I wonder about though is like how, like, you know, the funny thing about spies is like, at least in the Cold War, it's interesting. Like the history of spies in the Cold War is debatable whether they had any actual impact on anything, right? There was this whole like spy v spy game going on, but it, like, you know, in the grand time, did they actually do anything important? Like everyone's like, maybe it was a total waste of effort. On the flip side, you go back even further, like America stole like all of England's IP in corporate espionage, like during the like literally everything.
Huh? I hadn't heard that.
Oh yeah.
During the Industrial Revolution, Americans would go to Europe. They would steal all the designs for like power looms. They would sew it into the suitcases and then take it back to the US to like build power looms, right? It was like heavily stolen, right? And like the Chinese steal everything from us. But it's really interesting because like stealing like the Death Star plans, stealing secret plans is clearly valuable. And I'm sure it's happening all over the time. This like, I am actually curious as to what the value you're getting from like
stealing Slack messages.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what are you stealing?
They're stealing distribution.
If Rippling was talking to a Deel customer trying to get them to switch over, this Deel spy would intervene and try and give Deel a heads up to keep them. That is the implication.
Yeah. So the interesting thing here is like this idea of like there's like spying and espionage for stealing plans, Death Star plans. And that clearly happens globally all the time and has for hundreds of years. And like, it's a mess. That's like the IP theft. And then there's this, which is like customer back channel stealing, which I wonder whether, to your point, Brett, like what are the scenarios where companies even care to do it, right? It has to be enterprisey. Like you're not going to steal, I guess Uber Lyft, where they were trying to steal like more corporate level.
Well, a certain value too. Like these are like $12 billion. Like it's not going to probably happen for like a seed or Series A startup, right? So there has to be some inherent minimum floor of value in the company.
Yeah, I mean, for these enterprise SaaS companies, that's all the value that there is, right? At some point, everything's commodity, and so the entire battleground is sales, right? Like anybody who runs an enterprise SaaS company knows that, right? That like once you're at a certain scale, that it's all sales.
Well, to bring this full circle, Sam, as soon as someone rips off Guardling, I'm going fucking after them with my corporate espionage spies to get the sales from their people.
I think the real story is, so if you told me, so here's the question. If you told me that like, who's the spy hanging out at like YC demo day? Because what you really want is to put the spies in really early, right? And like be betting on like where to allocate your spies, right? And so I think the real question is like, which agencies are sitting at demo day being like, okay, we need to put spies into these 6 places. And then you have like super seasoned old spies that have been at it since the beginning.
Do you think Rippling tried to turn him?
Yeah. What about the double agents? Like, why wouldn't they do a double agent? Instead of suing, they should have done a double agent situation.
Parker, come on, man. Double agent.
Well, I think this is also probably just part of Silicon Valley growing up and becoming more important, right? Is like historically you'd be like, why do I need spies in these things? Now you clearly have spies not only in big tech companies, but like everywhere, like down market spies.
I don't know, Sam. Spies, to your point, have gone back to when I worked at Apple, we had secret buildings inside of secret buildings. We had buildings that looked like a building that was a vendor that actually had an industrial design lab in it. I mean, it's like this goes way back, like trying to hide things from spying it, particularly if you're dealing with chips and hardware. I mean, it's like a very serious thing.
Totally. The design stealing makes sense.
Yeah, but I think you're right, Dave. I think the biggest problem facing these enterprise companies is the cost of customer acquisition is through the roof and climbing by the second, and that's the name of the game. So,
I mean, Parker, I think there was something else going on last week where Parker was like tweeting that he disagreed with somebody's strategy for how they were going about raising money. I think it was that somebody had gone to YC, and like the main sort of moral message emanating out of YC is look at all of these YC companies with their one person creating all of the code, and they don't need to raise any money beyond their seed round in order to be massively successful, and they will be a $10 billion company, using AI software coding. And Parker responded like, yeah, good luck with that. Your competitor will just raise like, $1 billion and crush you. Right. And so I think that's like kind of says it in a nutshell, right? That like these types of companies
in this environment, yeah.
Yeah, but this particular type of company, of which 80% of YC's companies are these enterprise SaaS companies, and he's just right. The battleground is distribution in the form of sales, and the firepower for that is venture capital that can pay the salespeople.
Here's a question: do you think there are venture capitalist spies? I've never heard of a VC spy.
There must be.
What do they spy on? Just like what deals you're about to do, and then they steal them from you?
I don't know. It's like what would be like?
It's a good place to place a spy, actually.
You got a lot of board decks, like I wonder, but the problem is like the firms are so small. It'd be very hard to place a spy.
If it was a long con, I mean, if you're talking like Red Sparrow style spy where you're like playing it for 10 years and you want to aggregate.
I feel like VCs share pitch decks with each other all the time. Like, why do they need a spy?
The Red Sparrow thing was the prostitution ring at the Rosewood.
What was that?
Oh, the Rosewood got busted for this massive prostitution ring that had to do with the jewelry store in the lobby.
On like Thursday nights or something? Yeah, oh, this is great, Dave.
It was like this guy with a red Miata that was there every day. It was this
No. I've never in my life stayed at the Rosewood.
It's never stayed there, but you've been there quite a lot.
I've never been in a hotel room at the Rosewood.
Why is this red Miata in the parking lot?
What they do is they had this whole game going where like you'd buy jewelry in the lobby and then like give it to prostitutes, and the prostitutes would return the jewelry for cash. And for like a decade, there was like this massive prostitution ring running out of the Rosewood that was doing.
Wait, say this again. You'd buy jewelry, go go hook up with the prostitute, and pay her in jewelry, basically.
And then the jewelry store had a deal where they'd give you cash for the jewelry back, right? So like the basic way you do it is it would be like, oh, I'm not buying sex, I'm just giving you this bracelet. But then the deal was like full cash receipt for the bracelet back. And so there's this big circular economy of prostitution going on at the Rosewood.
Was this, I never heard about this. Was this like a big thing?
It's either Vanity Fair or Vogue or someone has the great tell-all.
If you told me that the Sparrows were actually the Rosewood prostitutes, that would make a lot of sense.
But back to the question at hand, Sam, does a VC spy make sense? Unclear. I think as a long con, it does.
I hate to break it to you guys, but VCs are not very private.
Just that's because most VCs can't make decisions without other VCs,
Well, it's also just like, I always used to say, like, it'd be kind of embarrassing if my phones weren't tapped. Like, am I so unimportant that it's not worth tapping my phones? And so like...
You're definitely that unimportant, Sam.
I don't know, but like...
Your phones aren't tapped, I'm sorry.
In some ways, like... If you take the VC thing, it's like, are VCs just not important enough to deal with spying on?
I think you could get a lot of IP
There's a premium service I would subscribe to for some specific people in the VC world, including you, Sam, whose transcripts I would really love to read of just a normal day in your life of the phone tap. So I do think I think there's some value in this idea.
I'm not interested.
I think the VC thing would be less about spying for information and more spying to get compromise on them to then manipulate them, right? Because like that's the other thing. Spy, it's more blackmail oriented than it would be like get the customer list.
For the male VCs, I don't think the female VCs have much blackmail that you can get on us.
I don't know, Brit. You never know.
To put a bow on this topic, there's a real ecosystem around like black ops, like research on people. Like, what do you call it? Why am I forgetting? Like
oppositional research.
Yeah, that is very, very big in the Valley. No?
It's a lot bigger in Washington.
I mean, yeah, it's mostly used for political reasons, right? Like Oppo's a political.
I feel like Oppo comes up a lot out here. So
it does. The problem, I will say, I think the honest problem with Oppo and a lot of Silicon Valley people is the reality is like most are just too boring. Like there just isn't Oppo to have, right? Like it's like Silicon Valley, everyone just like hangs out at home and goes to bed at 9 p.m. Like for Oppo to be effective, you need people doing.
No, that's what we do, Sam. It's not what everyone does.
That's what a lot of people do.
So we've got acquisitions, we've got spies. What else has happened this week in Silicon Valley before we give our viewers a respite from us?
Elon raised $1 billion for X. Is that relevant? We care?
$1 billion? That sounds like lunch.
I know, but like also there's like Tesla protests and people, graffitiing Tesla cars.
The valuation's down $10 billion.
For all the people out in like normal land, when you hear Elon raised $1 billion, take whatever your net worth is, divide it by 400, and that's the equivalent of what he raised. It's like, who cares?
Well, the more interesting thing was the price, right? The price is down 10 billion from, I think it was in the 30s. So, I mean, which seems reasonable given the numbers.
He's not going to sell it. So what does it matter? I mean, it matters for like the debt. And
he's buying more shares. Yeah.
I mean, he's consistently Elon. You got to give him to that. He's got his playbook, works at SpaceX. He's got to figure out what's happening at Tesla.
The only thing that'll be kind of humorous about the new fundraise is like all the funds that like refuse to carry it at anything other than what they paid. It's like, will they now mark it down and like admit that it's not worth what they paid or not? That's like the real operative question.
I think one did. I can't remember if it was ARK, but like one of them did that and the others quickly got mad and like everyone else kept it at the 40 billion or whatever it was.
Yeah, because you got to hold the line.
Okay, what do you guys think of this one? Other news, NVIDIA had their developer day announcements this week. And obviously there were more important announcements than this, but I thought this was interesting that Yum Brands, which owns Taco Bell and Pizza Hut and KFC, are now doing AI drive-through voice orders. Do you think this will be a good or bad thing for drive-through food?
But this also dovetails into the other news, which I saw this week, which is that Party City, Forever 21, Hooters are all going bankrupt, right? And one more. Joanne's Crafts, all 4 going bankrupt in the last week.
Brit, you strike me as a Joanne's Craft at some point in your...
Well, there was their logo was in one of my original pitch decks for Brit & Co.
It's like QSR and, retail 90, basically everything that we know about this entire category of business is just continuing to disappear.
It's funny, so my dad...
I know. That's why I thought this was great, Sam. I'm like, you got to talk about your dad.
Here's a history lesson. So my dad, way back in the day when the internet was young, with some friends started iParty.com, and they basically went public and realized that they probably needed actual locations. So they turned around with, the stock price of the internet party good retailer and bought 30 Northeast party stores. And then they actually rolled those together and ended up selling them to Party City. So I guess iParty finally 25 years later is actually fully bankrupt.
I just find it interesting that it's all happening at once.
The thing that my dad taught me with that one is very simple, which is you should never be in the Christmas tree business. Right. The problem with party good retailing is especially Party City, was your entire year was dependent on what day Halloween landed on. If it was on a weekend, you made money. If there was no snow in the Northeast, you made money. But if it was on a weekday or there was snow in the Northeast, you lost, because he's like, you just can't be in that business. It's a terrible fucking business because you're too dependent on a tiny number of days and factors.
I know a guy that owns christmastrees.com, and this is his primary business that he's had for many years now. And he only works 4 months a year selling Christmas trees. And he makes a shitload of money for an individual small business. And then he doesn't work the other 8 months a year. He kind of just does what he needs to do. So in that scenario, it's okay.
It's a great ski business.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I know the guy who owns nuts.com. That's a fucking killer business. Nuts.com and pretzels.com, those things crush, right? Because you know what? Everyone needs nuts.
Okay. There's one more bit of news we should mention. Brit, you brought up NVIDIA's developer conference, which is always a big show. My reporters down there said San Jose is completely packed. We moved the company's stock price earlier in the week by reporting that Amazon was trying to undercut NVIDIA's latest products with their second generation Trainium chip at 75% off. So unclear if it will work, but Amazon's really serious about its strategy here.
Amazon made a tranny chip? What?
Trainium.
Oh.
I believe it refers to training, which I believe is a principle of artificial intelligence.
Don't love the name.
Yeah, they also have Trainium, and then they have inferentia for inference or something like that. Yeah.
I mean, those are the two kinds of chips. So
Use AI to make better names for those things.
That sounds like an AI made name.
Yeah, it sounds like AI 4:00 on a Friday, AI made name.
If the chip named itself, the chip might not work.
I like how I try to introduce a pertinent fact to the business community and you guys talk about the name, but that's fine. I also actually was talking to one of my reporters about how NVIDIA names its chips, because you have Blackwell, Hopper. Do you guys know the answer?
No, but I have to go. What?
Famous computer scientists, many of them women.
I was going to say Grace Hopper. Yeah, I understand. That makes sense.
But you know what that makes me think of, which is that we went down to Palo Alto on Sunday night, and we were driving past the airport, and I realized that there is a Top Golf next to the airport in San Francisco now.
I hosted Lion's birthday party there. It's great.
I had no idea. When did it open?
Recently, last couple months.
Yeah. This is great news. Great news.
Yeah. Guys, do you think we should remind Sam that when we record this every week, maybe he could build in a 5-minute buffer so that he doesn't leave every episode before it's over?
Or just excuse himself to the audience instead of the Irish goodbye. But, it's fine. Just so everyone knows, Sam just left randomly.
Yeah. Well, Sam has left the chat, as they say, undoubtedly onto another AI pitch. This is what I was going to say, Brett. This is where I get my moment. You're like, I'd love to hear, Sam's day with the phone tap. When I hear it on those rare days I work from home, I believe he's just taking AI pitch meetings all day.
But he's so anti-AI. I don't understand.
This is why I thought this might be pertinent.
We need a more or less corporate spy, aka you, to feed us, the audience, who's all still listening right now without Sam here, the real tea on Sam's AI investing.
I will say he's consistent, though.
But he said he's not investing in AI. AI is not remote. There's a billboard, blah, blah, blah.
No, that's my point. He's taking them, but he's not.
I'm an LP in Slow Ventures. I know what's going on.
He's taking the pitches all the time. He is as skeptical, or 80% as skeptical in those pitches as he is here. But I just hear blah, 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 AI, blah, 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 AI, blah, blah, blockchain.
If he was really that skeptical, he wouldn't take the pitch. I'm just saying. But okay. All right. Let's see what happens.
I don't think he has that much agency over his own calendar, to be honest, because that would require him to take more agency over his own calendar. But anyway, so I bet he's on an AI pitch meeting.
Okay. Well, put your ear against the wall and just report back so we just know what's going on. And if it's tell us if it's somebody we should talk to at offline.
Right. Well, I assume that's another. I think you're right. That's how the real spy networks work. But between all you VCs, But I think with that, I think we covered it, folks. We got the big news, the small news, the culture news,
and everything in between
on another week of more or less. So huge thanks to the back channel, to our listeners, viewers. Subscribe on YouTube if you just want snippets. We've got a lot of great, actually pretty funny clips. It turns out when you collect all the things we say into a montage, it's pretty good. So we thank you all, and we'll see you again here next week for another episode of More or Less. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Go Warriors.
If you enjoyed this show, please leave us a virtual high five by rating it and reviewing it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Find more information about each episode in the show notes, and follow us on social media by searching for @MoreOrLess, @DaveMorin, @Lessin, @JLessin, and as for me, I'm @Brit. See you guys next time.